Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little while, but there's been some stuff going on. One of the biggest things for me relating to Porsches was back in May, the very 1st of May, there was the Swapmeet in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It's a big car show and Swapmeet. It's probably one of the largest ones in the world. I've been to a few across the country, but this is a big one. It's always been a big one. It's been going on for years. They canceled it last year due to COVID, but this year was a resumption of it, and they moved it from Hershey, Pennsylvania to Carlisle, which I can understand why they did it, but it was great. It was huge. There was a ton of people there. There was a lot of vendors, a lot of cars. I'll show a little bit of video from it right now. But there you go, that's Carlisle. And but these next videos are going to be about doing the gauges, wiring up the gauges. So the first video is going to be the 912 3 gauge. So forget about that one and forget about this one. Then we're going to do the 911 5 gauge. Then we're going to do the 912 5 gauge. So both of them have 5 gauges, but there is a little bit of differences between the gauges. These two last ones are different on the 911 from the 912. And yeah, so we'll do that. So this is the first video. Hope you enjoy. Hope you get something out of it. If you've got any questions, just email me, or if you have requests. I do have one request that I'll get to here soon about doing the generator hookup for a 912. That is on the schedule, so we'll get to that. If anybody else wants to see something else, just let me know. So hope you enjoy.
All right, so to start off with, I just wanted to lay all the gauges out and show what the difference is between the different cars. So in the middle here we've got a 911, then this one is for a 3 gauge 912, and then this one is for a 5 gauge 912. So starting over here we've got a clock, got a speedometer, and then a tachometer. So those are the same amongst all 5 gauges. Then you go to the 911, which this gauge right here is purely for oil, so it shows your temp and your pressure. And then this tank is for oil and gas. So over here is your oil level and your gas tank level. Then you come to the 3 gauge 911. Well, we'll do the 5 gauge 912 next. So that would be a 5 gauge 912. So you got your clock, speedometer, tachometer. Then you got a temp gauge that's got some lights on it, some idiot lights. And then you've got a tank level, which also has some lights on it. So we'll go over all that in detail on each one's specific video. And then you've got the last one, which is the 912 3 gauge, which would be like that. So you just got a speedometer, tachometer, and then you've got a temp combination gauge, a temp oil temp gauge, and then a tank level, so your gas tank level. There are, some people have some 4 gauges. There were some factory options. I'm not going to get into that. They sometimes would add a clock. So the clock is pretty straightforward. So any of these videos that I'm going to record on this stuff, you'll be able to see the clock. But there's going to be 3 videos once again. So 3 gauge 912, 5 gauge 912, and then the 911, which is a 5 gauge. So let's get into it. Let's start off with this one right here. So this is going to be the first one that we do. This is the 912 3 gauge. All right, so we're going to start off with the 3 gauge 912. So this is the way they would look in the car, looking at you if you were in the driver's seat. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip them over. So just know that this is what it'll look like if you were in the front of the car up by the gas tank looking at this. And then we're going to start with our speedometer first. So I'm going to go ahead and get these out of the way. Starting with the speedometer, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the actual dash lights that go onto this one. So it gets 2. So they go into the 2 holes here, one on the bottom and then one on the top. So they go in like so. And the next thing that gets put on is this for this little bulb right here, which is for your parking lights. So it's a green with a white with a green, and it comes out of the harness with a black. So the black is for a clock on a 5-gauge car. So you would just want to tape that back out of the way onto the main part of its little harness there. And then you're going to put the white with the green onto that bulb. And then you have on this one, it would have a ground bracket. So the bracket that holds the gauge into the dash, it's U-shaped. I don't have mine handy, but I'll show a picture of it right here. And you'll see in that picture there's a tab sticking up. So so you would put it over these two studs, and there would be two nuts that hold it on, and you'll have that tab sticking up. So you would bring your harness in, which is a 3-gauge harness, a grounding harness. So it's got 3 tabs on it to ground the gauges. So it would stick on that tab right about there. So you'd have that coming in. So to review it, let's just talk about everything. So you got 2 bulbs that are coming off of the black with blue. You got 1 white with green that goes to the bulb here that is for your parking lights. And then you've got the ground wire going into the bracket. Next is the tachometer. So we've got our turn signals up here, we've got our dash lights, and then we've got this bulb right here, which is your high beam indicator. And then on here, you can't probably see it in the video, but this plastic piece is marked with a 12, then a 1, and a negative. So we'll show where all that hooks up. The first thing that we're going to hook up are the turn signals. So this is your right turn signal, and it gets a black with green. So it's a double spade bulb. And I'll show you how the other one hooks up here in a second, but you're going to put the black with the green here, and then the other turn signal, the left turn signal, is a black with white, so it goes there. Then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my my dash bulbs. So we're going to hook that up, and it's going to get, let's see, it's going to get these 2. The other 2 over here went to the other gauge, to the speedometer, and then this one will go to your combo gauge. But it gets 2. Then we have the hazard signal, right? So it goes to the 2 turn signals, so when you turn your hazard lights on, they both flash. So it's a blue with a white, and it goes to the other spade on the 2 turn signals, like so. Now we're going to hook up the wires that go to the plastic piece here. So the first one is a 12. It's going to get the first of the blue with yellows. So that applies power to the gauge. So it goes there on the 12. The 1 gets the signal from the coil, which is the black with purple or violet. And then this one, last one right here, gets the ground. So it would get the second ground in the daisy chain of the 3-gauge grounding harness. So it goes like so. And then this right here is your high beam indicator, and a little light comes on when you turn your high beams on. So this is a white with blue, and it goes there. All right, so that's the tachometer. So to review, we've got our 2 turn signals. So the right turn signal is a black with green, the left is a black with white. The hazard lights get a signal from the blue with white, and it has a loop in it, so there's one that goes to each spade. Next are your dash lights themselves that light up the gauge, and it's black with blue, black with blue. Then you come down to the plastic connector here. The first one, which is the 12, gets the blue with yellow, and then the 1 gets the black with violet, and then your ground. And then this bulb at the bottom is for your high beam indicator, and it is a white with blue. So here's the 3rd gauge on the 912 3 gauge. It's the combo gauge. So it's got your oil temperature and your fuel tank level, and then it's got 4 lights in there. So we're going to go over all that. It's probably the most complicated gauge of all the 912, 911 variants up to 68. But let's start talking about it. So over here you got your fuel, over here you got your temp. So we're going to start with the fuel. So the fuel gets its wires from the fuel sending unit. So they're in a separate part of the harness. It's coming from the front of the car. But over here, you'll see you've got a G and a positive. So the G is what the green goes to. So take your green wire and connect it to that. Then the brown wire is your ground, and there's a ground tab right here. Okay, so we're going to hook that there. And then the black is for your low fuel light, and that's what this double spade is right here. So you want to attach the black to one of those spades. Next, we're going to hook up the oil temp. So it gets its signal from a green with black, and once again, you got a G and a positive over here. So the green with black goes to the G. Then you come to these individual lights in the middle, these double spade bulbs. So the bottom one is for your charge indicator. So if your alternator quits working, that bulb will come on. This one is for your oil pressure. We'll come back to that one. I'll talk about that one last. And then this one is for your handbrake. So the charging light gets a blue, and then the handbrake gets a brown with a white. So it goes like that. Then you've got this bulb right here, which is for your oil pressure sending unit. So when your oil pressure, or if your oil pressure goes low, this light will come on. On every diagram, the L53 and the L57, it references a green with a red wire, right? So on a 911, well, on this harness, this wire at the back of the car comes out towards the back of the engine compartment, which on a 911 is exactly where the oil pressure sending unit is. On a 912, the oil pressure sending unit is right beside the oil temperature sending unit. So this green wire comes out of the harness in the engine compartment right beside the green with black. So I personally think that Porsche put this green wire in there for that oil pressure sending unit. A lot of people say they put it in there early for the Sportomatic transmission that was going to come out in 1968. I don't think that's the case. I think it was added for the 912. They just didn't update the wiring diagrams. So, but you could use this. You're just going to have to figure out how to get it over the fan shroud and up to the sending unit, or you can use the green that's already there. So I'm going to use the green. So let's connect it to that bulb right there. We'll get that out of the way. Next, we have the last piece of the ground harness that needs to be connected. So it would go right on this little ground tab right here. Like so. Then you've got this wire right here, which is a green with a white. This is only used for the 911. It sends a signal from the oil tank that's in the back of the car. And then you've got the blue with, the black with blue, which we've been talking about because that's the main part of the harness for the bulbs. So if you notice, this has got a little bit different connector on it, not connector, but a protectant on it. It's a molded PVC boot, whereas these other ones are heat shrunk. So it has its corresponding male and female ends, this being the female and this being the male, so they go together nicely and give you a nice little, I wouldn't say it's watertight, but it's pretty darn close to being watertight. But so that's what that goes to. And then your last bulb on the 3-gauge car would go right here on this gauge. So there you go. That's it. Just to review it all, because like I said, this is probably the most complicated gauge of the series. So we've got the gas gauge. The green goes to the G. The black goes to the low fuel bulb. So it goes to one of the double spades there. Then the ground goes to its ground tab. And then we've got the temperature gauge for the oil over here. So it's a green with black. And then it's got the blue with yellow on the positive. And then going through the bulbs, we've got the bottom bulb here is your blue. So that's your signal from your alternator if it goes out. Then the next one is the oil pressure, which we talked about. I'm using the green wire. You could use the green and red. And then you've got the top bulb here that is the handbrake. So that's a brown with a white. And then everything gets a blue with yellow. So we've got a blue with yellow here, one on this bulb, one on this bulb, one on this bulb, one on this bulb, and then one over here to the fuel gauge. So that's it. That, like I said, is probably the most complicated gauge of the series. But yeah, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments or email me directly. All the stuff that you're seeing is available on 911highvoltage.com. Thanks. Appreciate you tuning in. And if you need to look at the 911 one or the 912 5 gauges, they'll be up soon. And thanks for tuning in. See ya.